Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, Ivey's time is now. Also, the V-Team takes a look at Cliff Sims' 15 minutes of fame. And State Auditor Jim Ziegler is a fashionista.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you, never gonna make you cry, never gonna say goodbye, never gonna tell a lie and hurt you, never gonna give, never gonna give you up, never gonna give, never gonna give you up, never gonna give you up.
Oh, Jim. You're never going to give it up. That's self-aggrandizing. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Jonathan, 2 weeks in a row, right?
I know. I was over there last week.
Yeah,
Over here.
hopping around.
Yeah.
Well, nobody gets that. Nobody takes
This is my
baby's
seat.
seat right
Yeah,
there.
that's her
That's
seat.
been her
Yeah,
seat.
no,
a
those
long
are fighting
time.
words.
Yeah.
I have to lie to Josh to get it when he's on with me.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't like it. He
Trick
doesn't
him
like
to
it
get
at
over
all.
there.
Somebody lies to Josh.
Beth, I want to start off today and on kind of it's a funny but also a serious note. State Auditor Jim Ziegler made national headlines this week because he made fun of, or I think tried to shame, a Democratic U.S. Senator, Kirsten Sinema, and for her fashion sense. He didn't like the way she's dressed. Now,
Which is funny coming from Jim Ziegler, right? Because that
Yeah.
man's tacky.
yeah. I mean, this is like a donkey criticizing a jackass's back end, right?
Right.
But the thing that hit me,
Except for that she's in no league with him, but
no,
keep going.
but one of the things that, the House women sought to have rules changed a couple of years ago when Speaker Paul Ryan, and they granted it. Because basically they were saying, we don't want to have to keep dressing like men,
Right.
And so they loosened the rules. She is very fashionable. Some people think too fashionable. But the thing is it right for men to be commenting on women's clothing and ignoring their IQ and ignoring her accomplishments?
Well, I mean, it's been the tale as old as time that men are going to do that. And I think part of it is she laid a trap and he fell right into it because she's not stupid. She's a well-educated woman. She knew that if she wore an outfit like this onto the floor, it was going to get talked about. And now here we are in Alabama talking about her while she represents the great state of Arizona. So, I mean, I think it's backfiring on Ziegler in a lot of ways. But, yeah, the outfit that she wears has no bearing on her ability to conduct business on the floor of the Senate. And that's the part that just is irrelevant.
And this is the taking it further back. Yeah, we used to have, women used to dress like men because that was the only way we were allowed in the club. Times are different now. Times are way different now, and it's time for the rules to change. And it's time for people like Jim Ziegler to get off her back. It's none of his business.
Well, Jonathan, I mean, I have never dared question a woman's attire because I've been happily married for 30 years.
Exactly.
And my mother was of the generation that wore matching pumps and bags and all that, very appropriately dressed. But, women today have a lot more fashion options. But, again, I just felt like as a state, why did we need to be embarrassed one more time by Jim Ziegler?
Well, hey, there's no comment. Okay. Jim is outspoken. He just says what he wants to say online. But, I was always taught if you don't have anything nice to say about someone, don't say it. In respect to ladies, no matter their political stance, I mean, as long as they're not, going topless or whatever. I mean, they have a right to wear what they want to wear. Honestly.
I know a lot of guys that wouldn't complain if we went around.
Well, I'm just saying, from a class standpoint, you just don't. You don't want to talk about someone's clothing options. Men, you made a great point. Oh, men don't talk about other men. As far as, oh, your suit's terrible. Why are you wearing those shoes? It's an afterthought.
Yeah,
of course. The people that see this portrait of Jim Ziegler on his Facebook page nationwide don't realize what we know here in Alabama. He's the most outrageous dresser there is. I mean, the master's jacket, green jacket, and the flag ties that you can see across the county.
Let's be honest, Ziegler's mad that he can't rock those boots. That's all this comes down to.
Those are some rocking boots. I will say that.
Aren't we all just a little mad that we can't rock those
I might have to tell my wife to get a pair of those.
There you go. I want to change subject. Cliff Sims, former founder of the, at least stated founder of Yellowhammer News, has been quite a bit in the news this week. He's been on all the talk shows because he has a new book that came out, A Team of Vipers, My Extraordinary 500 Days in the White House. Jonathan, he is big deal on MSNBC and CNN and several other places, mostly liberal media. Mm-hmm. Down here in Republican circles, Cliff Sims may not find a nice welcome home. No,
he has not. And I've talked to many Republicans who said, maybe he should find a new place to live. And that's not me quoting that. That's just from people what I've heard. Cliff Sims had a radio show. He spent 9 or 10 months bashing Donald Trump and everything about him. Cliff Sims is a true establishment person who worked for convicted Mike Hubbard. Okay, Cliff, I don't know how he got hired, first of all, and you were explaining to us earlier, because there were a lot of people who could have done a better job. And he went up there, and what he did was he stabbed our president in the back. And he has a non-disclosure, the whole 9 yards, and he found a time where he can try to make $1 million.
Well, the thing is, people that are not from Alabama don't know him.
Right.
And he's an opportunist, and he's going to do whatever it takes to get, going from bashing Trump to, now working for Trump and back to bashing Trump again. I tell you what, the boy better find a new state because he won't be able to get a job at McDonald's in Alabama.
Well, Beth, when he ran Yellowhammer News, one thing he never wrote about, Mike Hubbard.
Yeah, that's very true.
He knew where his paycheck came from.
He didn't bite at the hand that fed him back then. I just don't like these kiss and tell.
Right.
Books,
well, and it also, he's a fairly young guy, and he's presumably got a lot of career ahead of him.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't bode well for future employers when they see, okay, Trump hired you, now you're doing a tell-all book. Mm-hmm. If I hire you, at what point is my dirty laundry going to be out on the line? I think people look at that and they say, oh, I'm just not even going to risk it. Because there's some discretion that has to be involved.
The only person I've ever seen him loyal to was Mike Hubbard.
Yeah. And he hasn't written a tell-all book about that because he very well could have ended up in prison with him, maybe. Who knows?
Well, and I don't, Cliff does what he does. He's always been that way. They came in and imitated what we did, Mike Hubbard and Dax Swadek.
That's because they sent our business plan before we launched.
So it is what it is. Listen, the guy, he's 34, 35. He says that he thinks he'll be 36 by the time the Senate seat's up. He says, Beth, that he's going to come back and run against against Doug Jones.
I wish he would.
Jonathan, that's probably the only so-called Republican that could lose to Doug Jones a second time.
Well, as my friend Dr. Bill says, he said, I hope he runs because he would come up 5th in a 3-man race.
That's about right. All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and opinion.
The Energy Institute of Alabama promotes reliable, affordable, and clean energy to help grow our economy, create high-paying jobs, and build public support for Alabama's energy industry. Access to clean, affordable energy continues to be an issue of vital importance in the halls of government and around the kitchen tables across our nation. The Energy Institute of Alabama is the best source of energy industry information and how it affects households across the state, from convenient energy production to alternative fuels to solar power and beyond.
What are you doing today, babe?
I thought I'd head down to the lake with the guys, do a little fishing. Of course, none of us will be wearing our seatbelts. I'll lose control of the truck, wrap it around a tree, and kill us all.
Okay.
Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. Beth, last year, the Alabama legislature passed a bill that protected monuments, specifically any monument that's older than 40 years, or 40 years around the last 40 years. Any monument's been erected. And it did that under the guise of protecting our heritage. However, in parts of the state, especially in Birmingham, where it's a majority black population, they have found that the Lynn Park monument is, in their minds, a racist symbol, and therefore former Mayor Bell, put a big black box around it.
Yeah, the big black box of racism.
Yeah, that's what you call it.
It is racist.
But the other thing is the courts ruled that they could not tell Birmingham what to do on their property. Mm-hmm. This was a court ruling. Now that court ruling's being challenged. And what's the feeling in Birmingham?
I mean, the feeling in Birmingham is get Montgomery out of our business. I mean, because remember, too, a lot of these Confederate monuments, these are not, it gets confused. These are not historical artifacts from the Civil War. These are monuments that were put up in the 60s around about the time that certain people started demanding equality, and they were put up to remind people of a time when they had a place that these people liked. So this isn't about preserving our history, because it's not like these are battlefields and historical monuments. We built these in like 1965, y'all. Like, this is not like that. So, I mean, I just don't understand, because you have all these Republicans that talk about small government, local control, until it comes to Birmingham wanting to take down a monument or Birmingham wanting to raise the minimum wage, and then that goes out the door.
Jonathan, you have been on the side of protecting the monuments. I'm sure you appreciate Beth's argument. What do you see happening in Birmingham?
Well, you know, I see it from a different side. You know, there's a lot of people in Birmingham that want to preserve the history.
But do you live in Birmingham, Jonathan, or do you live in the suburbs?
Well, I live, walk across the street, I'm in Birmingham. So, but long story short,
Outside agitator.
Outside agitator. I got 35205, baby.
Well, let's say this. I know that when Save Our South originally, which is an organization in Birmingham, originally sued to keep the monument, the city of Birmingham secretly came to people who were involved in Save Our South and said, look, we want to drop this lawsuit. We want it to be quiet. We don't want any press. So if you'll agree to drop it, they went into the judge's chamber, shook hands, dropped the lawsuit. And the reason, so this was said, the reason behind that is because the city cannot find the deed to Lynn Park. And they claim, some historians claim that in the deed it says that all monuments and things of that nature must stay, or they give up the rights to the park. Now that's what's been said, but what concerns me is they can't find the deed anyway. So,
right. Why wasn't it recorded? Like, why is it?
It's been lost. It's been lost.
It was put there a long time ago, actually. But Susan, the crazy thing is a lot of this, there are people who have deep feelings, and certainly the black community, in my mind, has every right to say, look, we don't want this in our face. And the people of Birmingham, but again, Alabama's cities are primarily controlled out of Montgomery. The 1901 Constitution was meant to take away home rule. It was meant so that the white barons
aristocracy
could control what happened everywhere in the state, and it was a response to Reconstruction. It's simply historically fact. Now, Steve Marshall, who was an Obama Democrat, who's as weak as Jell-O, I mean, this guy couldn't fight a pudding pop, with both hands. He's jumped in here and he's just, rah, rah, we're going to protect our monuments and you need to stop this. I mean, good Lord, the guy was an Obama Democrat 2 cycles ago, and now he's like the Trumpiest of the Trumps with no hair on his chest.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with this whole issue is it's become about, people down here in Montgomery beating their chest over political issues instead of actually looking at the facts and the laws and things. Steve Marshall's jumped into this. This is the only way he can show that he's some sort of tough guy because he's actually not going to go after anybody. He's just going to kind of sail through his 4 years. Yeah. Everybody knows that.
God forbid he actually do his job and do the things that prosecute some corruption or do something that matters. He's fighting over a statue.
But it is the Attorney General's job. Regardless of who's sitting in the seat, it is the Attorney General's job to defend the law. And
right.
I mean,
He has the discretion on how much resources to put behind what.
Right.
That is within his discretion, and he can put some little low-level recent law school grad on this project and then put his top people on something else. Well, that's not what he's doing.
That wouldn't be fair to the people.
It is grandstanding, but
it's grandstanding.
The other day somebody said that Steve Marshall doesn't like some of the things we say about him, that he's coming after us.
He doesn't like some of the things we say? Which ones does he like?
I don't know. Maybe when I compared him to John Edwards, he might like that. John was kind of cute and personal.
He's not cute.
Until he cheated on his wife, right?
Yeah.
Would Marshall do that? I don't know.
He might need to worry about
Let's just say maybe he was giving some career advice.
He might be worried about some folks he gave some career advice to. But anyway. Gross. Anyway, but Jonathan, again, it is a serious issue.
It is.
And I think we need to take and look at it and see. I think the courts will side with the state.
I think they're going to preserve it until it's through the appellate process. And let's be honest, the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court ain't going to do away with the Confederate monuments. No. They all got to get elected. So here we go.
Real quick, we only got about a minute and a half. I want to pass right by this. Representative Haynes out of Scottsboro. Scottsboro took offense with us saying that he had no clue about SNAP programs and drug testing SNAP programs. Haynes, you just don't know what you're talking about. People aren't cheating on food stamps.
Yeah, it's pregnant women and children under 6, bro. They're not.
Yeah.
Well, and first of all, nobody ever really said that about him. We just talked about what it would cost to try to drug test people. Yeah. I mean, all we're doing is trying to talk about the facts and just get some discussion.
But those are fake news, Jonathan. You can't take actual concrete facts.
I'm just and just making sure you're real.
Yeah.
Look,
so you seem like real news to me.
Listen, I'm the king of calling out fake news. All we were doing was
post it all on Facebook all the time. That's all you post.
All we were doing was just having a discussion. That was it. We didn't.
Yeah. But when faced with facts, these people can't stay. They can't handle the heat. So they go, fake news.
Don't call your fellow Republican a fake news person. That's all I have to say.
I mean, listen, Tommy Haynes, people like him, but again, the people that are getting food stamps, if you drug test them, you're going to spend millions of dollars and get nothing back.
Well, this is different than TAMP. This is SNAP. This is a whole different program.
But the thing here is he knew this in committee last year. He talked to Josh Moon after it was over and understood the facts of the costs and the facts. Well, and now he's coming again with the same crap.
Some people have their own set of facts.
Apparently.
All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis.
Hey man, what are you doing today?
Play the game. Thought I'd go out for a drive later, maybe. Text some friends while I'm doing it. Scroll through social media. Kill a family 4 and a head on collision.
Cool, man.
Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. Alabama Republican Party Chairman Terry Lathan is going for a third run, Jonathan, as chair. As far as I can tell, Terry Lathan has done a better job than most anybody we can remember in the last, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years. She's also done it well as a woman, and she's done it in Gucci high heels. I mean, what are you going to say about that?
Yes, she does dress to the hilt. I'll tell you that.
Were we just talking about not talking about women's clothes, though? So
Yeah, that's true.
It was a compliment to say that she did it.
I want to know what size shoes she is.
It's different to compliment a lady. Long story short, she represents the party with class, and she gets things done, and that's what anybody that works for her will tell you. She gets it done. She expects it to be done right. She expects it to be done on time. I promise I'll get it done on time. Long story short,
good luck with that.
Long story short, she's done a great job. Now, the Doug Jones stuff that happened, a lot of people had come out and said, oh my God, how could she let this happen? But look, that was a perfect storm. There was nothing anybody could have done to prevent. I don't care if Reince Priebus himself had been down here and been the chairman, he couldn't have done it either. It was just a perfect storm. So overall, she's done a great job.
Well, and look at her compared to what we've got. I mean, look, she's effective. I mean, game recognized game, I guess, because she's good. She gets the job done. And I think that the second worst thing that could happen to the Democratic Party in Alabama is that she gets reelected because she's so good at her job. First worst thing is that Nancy Worley gets to maintain her chairmanship when the DNC Credentials Committee meets. But that's a whole different thing. I mean, like, but look at the two next to each other. Like, what an example of effective versus ineffective. And you see why the Republican Party is dominating statewide right now.
Terry's done a great job. She's not crooked.
No.
She gets it done.
She's running unopposed.
Yeah.
I mean, that tells us something.
Yeah.
Why would anybody want to run against her? She's doing such a great job.
Foolish.
And she's very personable. She never forgets to reach out to everybody. And what a great campaign on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'll tweet
All
you
right.
if you tweet her.
Well, I feel like when Steve Marshall forced Matt Hart out of office, out of his, I had no regard for Steve Marshall before that, but when he let his political cronies punish world-class prosecutor Matt Hart because he dared put these crooks like Mike Hubbard in jail, I think this was a disgrace and a dark day for Alabama. Matt Hart has now gone to the law firm, Spotswood Law Firm. They do represent white-collar crime.
They do white-collar defense.
They do white-collar defense.
I was always told as I was coming through law school that if you want to be a good defense attorney, go be a prosecutor first. And so I have no doubt that he will do excellent at that job. And
some people took commentary and kind of said, well, he's gone over to the other side. He had nowhere else to go. And you know what? If Matt Hart has a client, they're going to get the best representation. This man spent, since the day he was 17 years old until he was about 52, serving either our country in uniform or our country in state as a prosecutor. And not
uniform as a Green Beret.
Yeah.
I think the part of this, too, that a lot of people have missed is that when Matt Hart was prosecuting, you could pretty much trust if he brought an indictment against you, you needed to be indicted. Now, I mean, it's, Professor Umbridge in the Attorney General's office now, God only knows who's going to get prosecuted. And there's nothing to stop them from bringing indictments against good people where they can twist the facts and stack it wrong. And if that happens to a good person, they need to get Matt Hart on their side.
Yeah, well, Matt Hart will do a great job.
He sure will.
For spots.
And he deserves it. I mean, he's worked hard, and he had to fight in the Hubbard case to get people to believe him and listen to him.
And to get it, he also had to fight with people in his own office who were stabbing him in the back during the entire trial.
And getting stabbed in the back the way he got fired right before Thanksgiving, I thought was really.
Yeah, that was really.
Well, and the interesting thing, Spotswood was the firm that the Attorney General's office hired to help them prepare a lot of the legal documents for the Hubbard trial. So people have criticized, said Matt bought his position. Matt could have walked in pretty much any place he went. But anyway.
And I was going to hire him, that he couldn't afford
believe
it.
me, if I had the money, I would have hired him too. But Spotswood was the one that worked with him. It's a small boutique firm, from what we understand. It's not political at all. And we just wish him, to me, Matt Hart is a hero of the people of Alabama, and we wish him all the luck in the world. I want to move on to Kay Ivey. You know, it's always interesting. You write something nice about somebody, and they're like, why is he saying that? Because if it's due, it's due, right, Jonathan?
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
Kay Ivey has done things she said she's going to do. And now she's going to build some prisons, and she's going to probably get a fuel tax implemented, and she's already making a huge difference in education. Why can't I say, good job, Kay Ivey?
I don't see why not. I mean, she is doing a good job.
And she's doing it all despite Steve Pelham.
Exactly. But she's doing a good job. I like her plans moving forward. There's a lot of things that she's got on her agenda that I think are going to be good for the state. And I think it's about time a woman put her foot down and said, let's get it done, boys.
Well, with no disrespect to Lurleen Wallace, Kay Ivey is the first female governor of Alabama elected by her own merits. I mean, Lurleen was elected because she was George Wallace's wife. But, you know, again, some of this is controversial. I mean, the Republicans generally are against gas tax. She wants to raise taxes to do a fuel tax. She wants to, you know, lease 3 prisons rather than fighting it out with the legislature. I mean, Jonathan, what's your take on some of that?
Well, you know, the take, honestly, is she's trying to take a leadership role. And whether you like it or not, you know, she's stepping in there. I personally don't agree with the gas tax. I'm hoping that there's some compromise, but taking a stance always leads to your compromise. Well, this is what I stand for. You know, where can we meet in the middle? And bottom line is she hasn't done anything wrong like previous governors, you know, and so you have to look at her and say, okay, you know, we're moving in the right direction.
Well, I tell you, we ran into her the other day, Susan.
We did.
And she looked sharp and ready to fight.
She did. She was busy.
Yeah, so it was good. I mean, listen, we've thrown plenty of rocks at the governor. So when we say go Ivy, go, we mean it.
Okay. Well, she's starting the conversation. At least somebody's starting the conversations on these subjects.
Instead of kicking, imagine, Beth, a Republican governor that cares about prisons.
Yeah.
Or Medicaid expansion.
And not because of Rebecca telling it?
Yeah, exactly.
And look, I want our state to be successful just like I want our country to be successful no matter who's in the office.
Right.
Seriously.
Exactly.
Well,
I'm still mad about the PACT program. I just can't get over it.
Well, you know, you're going to have to get over it someday because you just won't be able to remember it. But anyway, we do wish Governor Kay Ivey all the luck in the world, just like we do Matt Hart. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.